Sí se los iba a poner, pero como pusieron sus presentaciones, pero se llama The Supply Chain Challenges. Forecasting.
Ahí decía.
Estaban todas las palabras. Ajá.
Los juntados y era de eso. Está como que muy obvio, no creo que sea todo eso. Pero dije,
ajá.
¿de otra forma se puede llamar usando todas esas palabras?
No se usaban todas. Pero sí estaba muy obvio. Marco, ¿quieres algo de tomar? ¿Quieres algo de tomar para pedirle al muchacho? Ah, bueno. Porque se van a ir a las 8:30.
¿Quién?
Los del meserillo. Sí.
Porque ya había tomado.
Sí.
Quedaron de comida en tu centro de comunidad. Creo que ya el micrófono ahora sí ya debería estar.
Está muy... ¿Y cómo lo desmuteo? O sea, de... Bla, 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 bla. Ey.
¿Ya? Okay.
Sí, ya, pues ya le dije a Javi, pero no me dice que ya. Yo creo que aquí les pedimos el micrófono. Sí. Ey. Ya vamos a iniciar. ¿Ustedes nos dan el micrófono y todo? Ah, ok. Ok. Hola, hola. Hola, sí. 2, 3, probando. Sí, se escucha bien. Buenas noches, ¿cómo están? No, yo no los escuché. ¿Cómo están? Ah, muy bien. Nos da mucho gusto aquí a sus amigos de Datalab que nos vengan a acompañar esta tarde porque, ¿qué creen? Estamos celebrando nuestro 8º aniversario. Sí. Ya la comunidad desde el 2016 está funcionando. Nada de que nacimos ayer porque la ciencia de datos se hizo popular. Nosotros ya veníamos hablando de esto desde hace muchísimo tiempo y tenemos testigos, ¿verdad que sí, Eric? Bueno, pues queremos agradecer mucho aquí a nuestros hosts, a nuestros patrocinadores, Citrus.aa. No sé si es la pronunciación correcta, pero muchísimas gracias por tenernos aquí en su spot. Y para todos aquellos que no saben quién es Datalab Community, no importa que tengamos 8 años hablando de ciencia de datos, Rubén nos va a dar una explicación.
Hola, muchas gracias, Teresita. Y pues bueno, ¿qué es lo que hemos hecho en estos 8 años? Como saben, Datalab Community o Datalab Community, como quieran pronunciarlo, nace con esa necesidad, ¿no?, de crear espacios donde podamos hablar de ciencia de datos y compartir, ahora sí que ideas y conocimientos, donde haya gente que sí puede saber más, pero también gente donde pueda venir a aprender y compartir, no importa si sabes mucho o si sabes poco, ¿no? Solamente tenemos una regla dentro de la comunidad, que cuál es, que todo lo que aprendan aquí vayan y lo compartan, ¿no? Entonces, ese es el fin de la comunidad y gracias a Dios han pasado muchísimas personas, ¿no?, a lo largo de toda la comunidad y eso ha sido muy bueno. Gente viene, gente sigue y pues seguimos, ¿no? Empezamos con Meetups, talleres, hemos tenido el Social Data Challenge, hemos tenido muchísimas actividades, hemos participado en hackatones, y pues bueno, en podcast también, Datacast, en Datalab Community, nos pueden buscar ahí también. ¿Y qué más, Teresita?
Mucho más. No, pues ya al final de esta grandiosa velada les estaremos explicando cuáles son nuestros planes para este año y cuáles son nuestras actividades que tenemos programadas para que no se las pierdan. Pero por lo pronto vayan anotándole ahí Datacast, que es nuestro proyecto, es el último de nuestros proyectos en el que hemos estado trabajando. Es un podcast en español. Ustedes saben que es muy difícil encontrar contenido de ciencia de datos en español, entonces nosotros lo traemos para ustedes. Hablamos de ciencia de datos y de todo lo que tiene que ver con datos y con la ya tan aclamada inteligencia artificial, ¿no? Pero bueno, sin más preámbulo, creo que es hora de comenzar con nuestras charlas que parece que van a estar muy buenas. ¿Alguien de ustedes adivinó el título de la Meetup? Porque tenemos premios para quien lo haya adivinado. Bueno, no se los voy a decir hasta el final de la Meetup, pero César, ¿pudieras pasar acá con nosotros, por favor? Creo que tú nos vas a hablar de lo que hace esta compañía, ¿no? Así que les cedemos la palabra, un aplauso, por favor.
Bueno, buenas noches a todos. Primero que nada... ok.
Si te lo conectas aquí.
Bienvenidos a esta su casa, que es C3. Tengo por aquí unos slides. Bueno, primero que nada, ¿alguien sabe qué hace C3? ¿Alguien que esté aquí sabe qué hace C3? Correcto. Por ahí un swap para ti, que va a estar ahí pendiente de darte. ¿Qué les parece esta terracita? ¿Qué les parecen las instalaciones? Está padre, ¿no? Está a gusto. Pues bueno, C3 hace 2 años fundó sus oficinas en Guadalajara. C3 es una empresa que tiene como misión apoyar a las diferentes empresas en diferentes industrias en la transformación digital. ¿Alguien ha escuchado de transformación digital? ¿Saben lo que es transformación digital? No, pues ahorita nos van a explicar nuestros. Sí.
Tiene que ver con el cambio a la que se enfrentan hoy en día las industrias, relacionado con el Internet de las cosas, el manejo de Big Data, la inteligencia artificial, los modelos predictivos, modelos de machine learning.
Excelente. Oye, ¿ya aplicaste alguna de nuestras vacantes? Sí traes, como dicen por ahí unos amigos, traes con queso las quesadillas. Una broma mexicana. Bueno, C3 abre operaciones en México, en Guadalajara. Yo llevo aquí prácticamente 1 año y medio trabajando. Ha sido una de las mejores experiencias que he tenido. Soy una persona que llevo más de 15 años en la industria y aún así, la verdad es que los retos que tiene la empresa el día a día es muy interesante. Puede llegar a ser estresante, pero puede llegar a ser muy reconfortante. La verdad, no sé si ustedes están familiarizados con la parte de inteligencia artificial. Creo que ahorita hay un boom en la industria, ¿no? Hay un boom en todo lo que estamos haciendo, lo que estamos viviendo. Empezó con OpenAI. Nosotros cotizamos por ahí en la Bolsa de Valores de Nueva York. No sé si estén familiarizados con todo esto, pero al final tenemos una nomenclatura que es AI. Y el año pasado tuvimos un repunte importantísimo. Hemos tenido una cantidad de clientes nuevos que se han integrado a nuestra cartera de clientes. Y uno de los productos más importantes que tenemos es Demand Forecasting. Y hoy les vamos a hablar un poquito acerca de Demand Forecasting. Pero muy brevemente, antes de pasar, quiero compartirles un par de cosas aquí. Como bien decía aquí mi compañero, sí, Elastic Cloud, Big Data, Machine Learning, Internet of Things. Ocupamos todas estas herramientas para nosotros proveer una solución a los clientes. Trabajamos en diferentes industrias. Esas solo son algunas de ellas. Y bueno, aquí en Guadalajara estamos actualmente trabajando en la parte de Energy Management, Supply Chain. En Supply Chain estamos trabajando en lo que viene siendo Demand Forecasting, Source Optimization, Process Optimization. Pero si se dan cuenta, hay una cantidad de aplicaciones que queremos abarcar que no hemos llegado ahí. Es por eso que estamos tratando de reclutar más gente para poder abarcar más en el portafolio de aplicaciones que ya tenemos en la industria, ¿no? O sea, queremos seguir desarrollando desde Guadalajara sobre todas esas aplicaciones. Bueno, muy brevemente, antes de pasar la palabra a Ana y a Yash, que van a hablar un poquito con nosotros, C3 es una empresa que se enfoca fuertemente en apoyar el conocimiento y el aprendizaje de sus empleados. Ofrecen unas oportunidades, unos perks que llaman por ahí muy importantes. Uno de ellos es, si tienes un buen performance con nosotros, estás trabajando bien, se te paga tu maestría en la Universidad de Illinois en Urbana-Champaign. Se te da por ahí un bono, se te da por ahí acciones, se te incentiva y se te motiva para que sigas aprendiendo, ¿no? Esta es una maestría en Computer Science y Data Science. Entonces, es algo muy, muy único. O sea, yo no he visto otra empresa en Guadalajara que básicamente apoye de esta forma. Por otro lado, solo para compartirles cómo C3 se enfoca mucho en apoyar a los empleados para que sigan creciendo. Tenemos una serie, un catálogo de cursos de Coursera que al final, si tú los realizas, se te va a dar un bono importante en dólares, por ahí, bueno, en pesos, pero nace de dólares. Y básicamente, si pueden ver aquí, por ejemplo, Big Data Specialization, Deep Learning, Machine Learning, están súper interesantes y al final vas a tener un incentivo de si los completas, ¿no? Bueno, antes de ceder la palabra a Ana, la invitación está para todos ustedes, o si tienen algún conocido para que apliquen alguna de las vacantes que tenemos en C3, pueden entrar en nuestra página. Ahorita al final voy a mostrar por ahí un código QR, si alguien está interesado. Y lo que pueden ver aquí es que básicamente la compensación que ofrecemos está dentro del top 5 de las empresas aquí en Guadalajara. Ofrecemos por ahí un paquete de acciones bastante interesante, que puede ser un beneficio muy, muy importante. Y lo más importante que todo es que no somos una empresa que da soporte a un cliente externo. Desarrollamos el producto desde aquí de Guadalajara. El equipo en el que yo estoy trabajando, yo soy aquí Engineer Manager, está enfocado en Demand Forecasting. Tenemos total ownership de la parte de Demand Forecasting. Trabajamos muy de cerca con la gente de producto, que es Ana, que ahorita va a hablar con ustedes. Trabajamos muy de cerca con Data Scientist, que es Josh, que ahorita va a hablar con ustedes. Y bueno, a mí me motiva eso muchísimo. Y aparte de eso, pues hay un ambiente súper padre en la oficina. Hay gente súper, súper talentosa. Y uno de los principales motivantes para mí aquí es tu compañero de al lado. O sea, es una persona que tiene una trayectoria importante, un conocimiento importante, una expertise importante y puedes aprender bastante de él. Eso es algo que es bastante motivante, honestamente. Y bueno, por aquí está la parte del código QR si alguien quiere tomarlo, si no, después. Y le voy a ceder la palabra a Ana y a Yash. Ellos van a estar hablando un poquito de Demand Forecasting. Ellos vienen de Redwood City, que es donde está nuestro corporativo. Y bueno, estuvieron acá trabajando con nosotros y aprovechamos la oportunidad para que le tengan una plática a ustedes y a la comunidad de Datalab. Adelante. Va a ser en inglés, so please have me welcome Ana and Yash.
Hi guys.
¿Me prestas el micro?
Okay, let's try to control the voice a little bit. I apologize, we're going to have to do this in Right, so I'm based in California, in Redwood City, and so it's in the middle of Silicon Valley, so that's where our office is in the U.S. We have offices in New York, in Chicago, I think in Minneapolis, somewhere in Europe, in Singapore, I think Bangalore now, in India, and here. And we're actually super excited about our Mexican business. So currently all my engineers are here, which is crazy. So we're a very international company. So Yash is our lead data scientist. So he runs all of the AI, all of the machine learning. So I'm the product manager and the engineering talent. I see a lot of you guys in the room here, which is awesome. Thanks for staying. Yeah, so we have a couple of things we want to talk about. We wanted to kind of talk about some of the stuff that we do. And of course, I'm most familiar with supply chain. Everybody knows what supply chain is, right? Okay. Also, I'm very aware that English is hard. I'm not a native English speaker myself. So if you have any questions, if I'm talking too fast, if I say something that is not clear, please stop me and Cesar or somebody else will translate. And also, I know you guys don't want to look at a PowerPoint for 30 minutes. Yeah, you probably do that at work a lot already. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the things we do, but please raise your hand, ask questions. This is really meant to be, I'm not trying to sell you the product. I do a lot of that too, but this is just meant to be an educational discussion. So supply chain. Can we, thank you. All right, we can stay on the slide for a bit. So supply chain is really, really important for any business. Maybe if you're in a software business, it's a little bit less important. If you're in manufacturing, if you are in, if you make food or groceries, if you run a restaurant, this is it's critical to you, right? I think many of you guys saw a lot of articles about supply chain disruptions during COVID. I know in the US it was a very big problem. I assume here as well. And that's when it turned out that supply chain is important because restaurants couldn't buy food. Farmers couldn't farm. You couldn't ship things. Ships were getting stuck in the Suez Canal, right? So we've seen a huge. Did it die? Okay. Testing. Okay, interesting. We've seen a huge increase in demand for supply chain. So is there another? Okay. Is there a trick to this?
Sorry.
Is there a better one? Okay, sorry. Maybe the battery's dying? Okay. Oh, it's a box. All right, awesome. Well, Yash and I are great at artificial intelligence, not very good at microphones. So supply chain for us, the demand for supply chain products has really exploded. This is why our Guadalajara, I'm starting to think it's me. Okay. Our Guadalajara office does two big products. So supply chain is one of them, and we also do reliability, which is for industrial manufacturing. And we have 5 products. So this is Yash and me, and we also have some other ones. Everybody understands what demand forecasting is? Sort of? Okay. Inventory optimization, so same idea. So you have inventory, you want to not have too much inventory or too little. This is if you're running a manufacturing plant. How do you schedule your plant or a factory? This is how you source products for your business. And this is how you identify all the risks, right? So this is where demand forecasting for us is the most important. I'm not just saying that because it's my product. But the way we think about it is any company, and our customers tend to be companies that are at least $1 billion in revenue, right? So we have big customers. This is not sort of your local restaurant, right? We have some of the biggest companies in the world. We're actually starting to do a ton of business in Latin America now, which is really exciting. We currently have a customer in Guatemala, and we have some customers also maybe in Mexico, somewhere else in Latin America. But for demand forecasting, if you're such a big company, you need to know how much of your products people are going to buy before you do anything else, right? So if any of you have any experience with, manufacturing or even grocery business, you know that, to plan anything, you need to forecast how much demand you're going to have. That is actually a really difficult data science problem. So we have an extremely strong data science team. Yash is one of them. I mean, it's really funny to me because, you know, our data science team, you know, they all have master's degrees and PhDs from all these top universities, and they're really, really talented. And we also have amazing engineers, like amazing engineers. The team here is fantastic. We do need more engineers, though. So if anybody's interested, we are hiring, both here and I guess in Redwood City as well. But let me tell you a little bit more about what it is we do. Can I actually just do this? Sorry. We're going to jump around a lot, so please just bear with me. Yeah, so when I think about demand forecasting, this is kind of the circle that we do. So we start with demand forecasting. Then from there, we can optimize inventory, schedule the production, optimize sourcing, and optimize supply, identify and optimize supply network risks. So a lot of our customers start here, and then they kind of go down the entire chain, which is great for us because the way we charge customers is per application. So if they buy all 5, we make 5 times as much money, which is fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about demand forecasting. So this is the one slide that explains the demand forecasting problem. So if any of you ever do any demand forecasting projects at your current job, or let's say at C3 hopefully, or somewhere else, this is something you're going to see every day. So if you're a company, do you guys know what SKU is? Stock keeping unit, right? So that's a unique code for each product. So if you go to a grocery store, you know, your cerveza of one kind is one SKU, some other beer is another SKU. So when you forecast your demand, you need to forecast at the bottom level, right? So you need to forecast here. Unfortunately, most companies that are big enough to be our customers, they may have 10,000 SKUs or more. You can't possibly forecast for each one of them with a person, right? Like you just can't. And a lot of the time they need to forecast every week, sometimes even every day, maybe every month, but it's very difficult. And you know, these jobs traditionally, somebody had an Excel file and they would just do it in Excel. They would have some sort of, maybe they would have a regression analysis in Excel. It was very sophisticated. And that's how they would do it. So if you're in a business that makes software for, you know, businesses, you very quickly learn that the business runs on Excel, right? But that doesn't really work, unfortunately, anymore. So our customers, they need to forecast here. They usually can only forecast here, which is the company level. So they can kind of say, at a company level, we think we're going to sell, you know, $1 million worth of something, or at a business unit level, but they can't break it down to individual SKUs. And it's actually a very, very, very good problem for AI, right? I think, like, does everybody understand why? Because if you have 10,000 SKUs or more, some of our customers have 400,000 SKUs. It's a lot. So if you have so many, you're actually, you need AI to do it. You just can't do it yourself. Like, you can't hire enough people. Not to mention that, you know, so right now we have a customer, one branch of their business does beer. The other branch does real estate. This third branch sells, chicharrones. They're in Latin America. So, you know, the way you forecast demand for, you know, cerveza is very different than the way you forecast demand for chicharrones, right? I think we can all agree. I know that they go together probably. Like, if you drink beer, you may have some chicharrones, but, you know, at least that's what I would do. So what Yash and his team does is they can forecast demand accurately, you know, here, 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 and here, right? And what's interesting is that I can guarantee you that nobody else in the world can do it. And I know this sounds very optimistic. I'm very aware of that. But, you know, I stand behind my words. there are a lot of companies that are in that space, but most of them can only forecast maybe down to this level. The reason we can, there are many reasons we can do it, and Yash can actually talk about it a little bit. One of the main reasons for us is we actually have an AI platform. So we use our platform to scale to that size. I know Yash will talk about it in greater detail, but that's why for us, it's been a very successful business. So this year, I think this part of the business has grown. The fiscal year is not over yet. I think we grew at least 600%. So we're doing great. We just need more people. So it's been very easy for us to sell it because it sells itself really. I want to get Yash a chance to talk a little bit about how we do it. I think it's probably interesting, especially for those of you who have some data science background or interest in AI. But before I do that, are there any questions I can answer right now? Really, no questions? Okay, all right. Then I'll just pass it over to Yash. Do you want to, I can switch to, how about I switch to this and then we can go through the data science? Mm-hmm.
I'll just also quickly introduce myself. So my name is Yash. I'm a data scientist at C3. Been working there for 4.5 years now, and I can say that it's been a fantastic learning experience. So besides all of the amazing things that Cesar has spoken about and Anna has spoken about with respect to benefits of working at C3, and there's a lot of amazing benefits, free master's degree and bonuses and all of that good stuff.
They also pay you money.
They also pay you good money.
Yes.
But besides all of that good stuff, I feel like if you're young in your career and are looking for the next big break, to learn everything, and learn everything with AI being at the foundation of it all, given, and I'm sure everyone has some interest in it. Everyone wants to dabble in AI in some way, right? Because it's the new in thing. Then, without a doubt, C3 would be the best place to be. Even though I'm a data scientist, in my 4 years here, I've had the chance to wear so many hats, like engineering, thinking about the UI, a little bit of product management, a little bit of sales. So, you get a really, really extensive lay of the land of everything that it takes to run an AI company and to sell an AI product to a customer, which, believe me, for enterprises, it's quite challenging. So you understand, besides the technical detail, and you get a pretty extensive lay of the land there, you also understand strategy, sales, and all of these things to get to experience when you're young is, I think, just priceless. So really enjoyed working at C3, and we solve really challenging problems. So, all of the amazing things that you've seen on slides with respect to all of these problems that we, let's say, just solve in supply chain, it's not really easy, because dealing with real world data and trying to model it and automate things and just show magic that, hey, I can actually predict what your demand's going to be like in the next few months, it's pretty challenging. So, so if you're also looking to, push yourself from the intellectual point of view a little bit, C3 is a great place to be. Okay. Now let me answer the question that I was brought on for. Demand forecasting is actually a pretty challenging problem, and like Anna mentioned, is probably the most important aspect of your supply chain that you would want to solve with AI compared to any other subsequent step, because it is the foundational step of your supply chain, right? If you think of supply planning, planning for your raw materials, anything. You need a demand forecast of your finished good at some level that you want to plan for. Right? And different companies do it differently. Some companies want forecasting at a very granular level. Right? They don't just want forecasting at the product level. They want forecasting at the customer, the distribution center, and even the sales channel level. Some companies want forecasting at the region level. Right? So at different levels of your product, location, sales group, customer hierarchies, you have to generate a forecast. And for C3, that's a challenging problem because as a company, I want to sell to everyone. I want to sell to all enterprises. Enterprises are, complex, I would say, black boxes in the sense that, they run their supply chain processes very differently. I could cater a very custom solution per enterprise customer that I deal with, but that's just not scalable, right? I can't just put 10 people on every project and expect them to just go ahead. It's not scalable for me. So the challenge, we won't make money, and that's why it's a challenge for C3 because I need to try to come up with a generalizable solution that can work with any enterprise. Right? Different enterprises plan at different levels of the hierarchy. They have their own data problems. Some of them want forecasting at multiple levels of the hierarchy. Some of them want, to also take into account production planning when they're doing demand forecasting. CPG companies behave very differently compared to manufacturing companies. It's crazy, So I want you to now think if you have 10 enterprises that are coming to you and say, hey, do demand forecasting for me. Just think of the complexity of, the thought that's going on in your mind. How do I come up with a, generic solution to solve this problem? And I think that's probably the best example that I can give to corroborate the complexity of the problems we try to solve. So it is challenging. The problems are challenging, and you work with really smart people to solve these problems. You're working on AI, right? And we try to use latest and greatest modeling techniques to solve these problems. And given that, modeling and deploying these AI models is kind of the center of the solution. Like everything revolves around how good my forecast is. As an engineer, or as a product manager, or as a program manager, or even as a technical salesperson, you need to know about AI. All right. And so again, like if this is if you're looking for your breakthrough into understanding artificial intelligence, even though you would come in, as a software engineer or any other role, trust me, you would need to understand to some decent extent how modeling works. Right? We typically try to use the best state-of-the-art modeling approaches that are out there, so we stay up to date with research that's ongoing, and try to adapt our modeling techniques to any improvements. So if some of you have been following the news, the hype around AI recently with generative AI, generative AI actually has a ton of positive implications on improving our product, demand forecasting. So if a planner, like not just think of if you were actually the demand planner who was trying to plan demand for a particular product for your company, you're presented with this model that just gives you a forecast. What is a forecast? It's just a sequence of points over time. And if that's all it gives you, then you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Sure, I get some sense of what demand could be over time, but I need to really know as a planner what's actually constituting this prediction, right? And because I'm answerable to the final demand plan that I come up with, right? If I mess it up, then I'm answerable. So in C3, we try to explain why we're predicting something, right? Hey, weather is the reason why your forecast is going up, right? Hey, you had a promotion. That's the reason why your demand is going up, right? And with generative AI, it makes understanding why a model is predicting or forecasting demand a particular way easier, right? So we're actively working on integrating those techniques into our application to improve the explaining ability of our forecast and improve the demand planner experience. Besides that, the other key challenge that we face with pretty big customers is they need demand forecasts at different levels of their hierarchies, right? At some particular levels, they need it for planning purposes. At some levels, they need it for reporting purposes, right? So a planner would typically want to forecast at a lower level so that they can plan appropriately. But when he has to report something to his executive, the executive will want to see something at a higher level. So then they come to us and say, hey, I want forecasts at 2 different levels. So I can forecast at 2 different levels, but then I need to make sure that the forecasts at the bottom level add up to the forecasts at the upper level, right? And that's a pretty challenging research problem that we're trying to solve. So I gave you a sense of 2 hard research problems we're trying to solve. There's actually many more. Besides that, C3 as a tech stack is pretty scalable in terms of deploying models at scale. If you look at companies out there, particularly startups that are trying to improve the model ops and deployment experience of, in general, the model ops and deployment experience, they try to solve one problem at a time. They just try to solve singular problems, Hey, I will help you track models once it's deployed. But you figure out and deploy the model. Okay, I will help you track it after it's deployed. Okay, I will help you improve tracking your data better. Okay, but after I help you do that, you figure out how to model, right? So then if I'm an enterprise, I'm like, oh man, I need to go and cherry pick solution A, solution B, solution C, solution D, solution F. And I need to string all of that together. And that's still significant investment from my side, right? What C3 does is across all steps of your model deployment pipeline, we have in-house solutions that are all strung together. Like the user flow is very simple, very Pythonic, right? It's very easy to use. And so now for a customer, okay, you know what? I just need to go to C3, data integration, data cleansing, warehousing, pre-processing, modeling, UI, explainability, everything you get in-house. And our tech stack is built on top of Java, which is pretty robust, scalable, and from an engineering point of view, also it's scalable. So both research, engineering, tech stack, it's quite scalable, and the numbers speak for themselves. Recently, for a CPG company in the US, we deployed we deployed demand forecasting for 40,000 different product, customer, sales group, distribution center at that level, right? And trust me, that's not easy, but we did it in 6 months, and that's because A, we have an amazing team, and B, we have the technical resources. So I hope I didn't bore you guys too much or just overwhelm you with too much of information. But that's just a high-level overview of how we do amazing work. I'll hand it back to Ellen.
Yeah. So, look, I think we're going to stop the sales pitch, and we're happy to answer any questions, right? So we have some C3 colleagues. 1 second. I heard you guys. We have some C3 colleagues here as well. So if you have questions about working here, I see some familiar faces that I'm sure are going to be very happy to answer some of this. And then if you have any questions about the business, strategy, or data science, happy to answer those as well. Sir, you had a question.
Thank you. What are the competitive advantages between other demand forecasting platforms? For example, Blue Yonder or Manhattan, SAP, or
09.
That's my first question. And my second question is, what is your commercial model? Is it based on user licenses? transactions, SKUs, or any other driver?
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is a great question, actually, and I see that you're familiar with the space. So yes, we have a lot of competitors, and many of these competitors have been out for quite a while. Some of them are bigger companies, so there's a flavor of SAP IBP that does this. There are sort of more recent companies that do supply chain only, like Blue Yonder that you mentioned, Kinaxis, 09. There's many others. If you guys want to work in the demand forecasting space, there's a lot of options. For us, and like once again, I'm pretty confident when I say this, we automate everything, right? So with a lot of the companies, you either get a forecast that is one size fits all. So you have one machine learning forecast for your entire business, which doesn't usually work. So I can give you a really great example. We have a customer in the US that makes chicken. They're very, very big meat manufacturers. So mostly chicken, but I think also beef and turkey and other meats. And they could only forecast demand for 50% of their business sort of accurately. The other half, they just couldn't do it. They lost, their executives were fired. Like, this was a very famous story a couple of years ago. I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, because this was their important part of the business. They just couldn't do it. So they had the model. The model predicted correctly, or sort of correctly, for half the business, and the other half they just didn't know what to do with. And they actually tried some of the names that you've mentioned. And then they came to us, and we were actually able to do it in, I think, 6 weeks, initially 10 weeks. Yeah.
I was on that project.
Yeah, Yash was the one who did it, so he knows a lot more. So the other thing is, like Yash said, we do forecast. So if we go back to this kind of pyramid view, okay, sorry. I've never seen anyone else be able to forecast across all of these dimensions. So a lot of the time, once again, like we see forecasts maybe for product line or product family, but not for the entire, like, different options. So SKU customer, SKU distribution center. So we actually allow that. We have a ton of really interesting data science approaches to this. Since not everybody here is a data scientist, I'm not going to bore you with this. But if you guys are interested, please, after this talk to Yash, he'll tell you all about it. Did you have something to add? Okay.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I just wanted to answer that from a more technical standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I was saying before, every step of the C3 AI at the foundation provides a platform. Okay, it's just a bunch of tooling for you to build your own custom AI app. So, anything data integration, modeling, deployment, UI, we give you tooling to do that through this abstraction called the type system. All right, and that is termed as a platform as a service. So a bunch of things are available out of the box, easy customizability. And on top of the platform, we build applications. All right. Now, some of these applications, we can build a custom app directly on the platform for a customer if it's like a new use case, or for something like demand forecasting, for which we worked with 15 customers at least in the last 2 years. We've been able to commonalize or generalize learnings and build an application on top of this, right? So it's quite generalizable. That should reduce customization, right? On the data science side, C3 AI treats the data scientist's experience treats the data scientist as a first-class citizen when it comes to their when it comes to their authoring experience with respect to building models and then deploying it. So I don't need to sit and write SQL queries or learn the respective language or whatever database my company's data is sitting on to fetch my data then I don't need to sit and write custom Python code to create my models. And then I don't need to worry about the infrastructure for deploying them. All of these steps are available through a very Pythonic SDK, and everything is tied together really well. So the user flow for a data scientist to get the data they need to experiment with and deploy models, very easy to use. So for instance, you know, if, going back to my example of like the CPG company with 40,000 subjects, right? I get all that data, I decide on these 10 models I want to try. I don't need to worry about how I'm going to distribute, you know, the training for all of these models and the optimization jobs for all of these models. There is a cluster with some compute available. I just need to interact with an API, give it these 10 models to try, and everything is through the C3 Python SDK. So the user experience, very Pythonic, you know, merges well with all the typical data science modeling and data munging libraries that typical data scientists would use in their day-to-day life. So that the authoring experience is really good, and that's something that I think is a very key differentiator compared to 09 IBP. 09, for example, well, you get a notebook, you get a bare bones VM, set up a notebook, do whatever you want, but then you still need to worry about infrastructure abstraction when you want to deploy. There's still a ton of customizing you need to do. So there is still customization, even in C3, I'm not going to lie, but it's very reduced. The data science experience is great, and you know, the last thing you want is to have 10 people working on deploying models. You want it to be efficient. You want to make sure that the modelers are productive, and the best way to do that is to give them easy, you know, software to use, and the SDK gives you that. Did I answer your question? Any follow-ups?
Okay, let's talk about money. I think that's probably also very interesting. So how do we make money, and how do we charge our customers? So projects are not cheap. I'm not going to give you guys exact numbers because they are to some extent commercial proprietary information. But like I said, our customers tend to be at least $1 billion in revenue. If this is a foreign company that has slightly weaker currency, like some countries in Latin America, we may work with slightly smaller companies, and we do have a pretty flexible scale. The way we do our engagements is we have pilots. So we usually engage with customers for a pilot up to 6 months. A pilot means that at the end of it, you get a fully functional application. So this is not a proof of concept, it's not a demo, it's not a PowerPoint deck. You actually get a application that's ingesting the data live, it's writing back to your SAP or whatever you have live also. And it also is, so by 6 months, we train the users, we make sure the UI works for everyone, we make sure the data science results work for everyone. We have dedicated teams that do this. So the way we're split is we have application engineers. So most of my colleagues here, actually, Hanato, I'm trying to pronounce it correctly. Here, he's an application engineer. We have teams that deploy products, so like do pilots and then do production with the customers. I think we have one solution engineer in Guadalajara so far. Oh, here we go. Yeah, just one, but like have more. Especially now that we are growing in the Latin American market. Spanish speakers are now very valuable to us. So after 6 months, customer decides if they want to continue the engagement. So the pilot has a flat fee. It's a pretty high flat fee. After that, they are charged based on a compute basis. So it's a consumption model. So they basically pay for what they consume. We usually have some decent estimates for how much it's going to cost our customer. It's not a seat per seat model, so it's not one user is X dollars. It's literally a consumption-based model. So it's in our interest to make products that actually are used, because that is how we make money. many of our customers, when we do a pilot, we usually do a portion of the business. So if you have, 5 manufacturing plants, may do 1. After that, we will roll out to the rest of your business. Did that also answer your question? Awesome. What other questions do you guys have? Please.
Thank you. So I was really interested in the benefits that C3 offers to companies about inventory management, risk assessment, all that. Just as a question, most of Mexican companies are small and medium businesses. Is there any future project now that you're breaking in Latin countries for smaller businesses?
This is a great question. It's actually a very strategic question. I love where you're going with this. Yes. So first of all, there are a fair number of Latin American companies that are large, but yes, you're right that the companies here tend to be a little smaller. We are working on some self-service capabilities. So I think everybody knows what self-service is, right? So the idea is that instead of having 6 months where you pay for people to come and do your pilot, you have an ability to configure it yourself, or sort of yourself, maybe with some help. It's actually something that I've been thinking about a lot. Yash, I think we've been talking about this. And that is how we would reach those companies. Because especially for, inventory optimization, demand forecasting, even if you're a medium-sized company, you still have the same exact problems, right? So yes, it's a great question. We are thinking about it quite a lot. I think we now have self-service generative AI, actually, if I'm not mistaken. We've been doing a ton of generative AI. Actually, we have a separate demand forecasting generative AI solution that many customers are also doing. So we're definitely moving in that direction. Other questions? Please.
Thanks. I'm not sure if I got it entirely correctly, but when Charles was speaking about integrating tools to understand how certain events impact demand patterns, were you speaking about causal inference tools or methodologies? And in case you did, would you say that companies, particularly in Latin America, do have a demand for that sort of, let's say, statistical work?
Great question. Yes, they do. Just reiterating one of the things I was saying. I think enterprises are, now, by their executives too, are also being encouraged to adapt to AI as quickly as possible. And for a member of a working team like a demand planner who has to truly trust demand forecast output from a model, they need to understand what's causing it, right? And so, for us, it's really hard to sell anything without explaining why a forecast is what it is. So we really focus on modeling more as an art than just making it a compute problem where, hey, okay, you know what, I have these 5 potential data sources from which I can get, 200 features, and I'll try these 10 models and just throw them in a cluster, let's figure out what's good. We really sit down with SMEs in every project. So every time we do a new pilot, the data scientist on that pilot has dedicated sessions with the subject matter experts. These can be planners themselves. These can be product managers. These can be salespeople, right? And they try to get a sense of, hey, what goes on in their mind when they do an iteration of demand planning. What's happening in their mind is what we put in the model. So based on what they say, we see if we can figure out data sources that also reflect their thoughts on what they use to when they do demand planning. And we try to bake those in as features into our model, right? So, I can say this for a fact that very rarely we end up with very easy problems where, you know, products have a very straightforward trend and seasonality that you know, it's like so obvious what the next prediction is going to be that never happens. Historic demand patterns we deal with are, you know, at face value, they look pretty random, right? And so, but it's not really random. There are some reasons. There's something hidden that's causing that pattern. And we speak with SMEs. We use our experiences from previous projects, and we try to figure out the right data sources to explain that forecast. So yes, explainability is key to what we sell, and that's not only for demand forecasting, even for other applications at C3. We really try to explain whatever we're predicting, even if it's just a standard like classification problem. Like if I was doing fraud detection and I was like classifying a transaction as fraudulent, I need to say why. Otherwise, I mean, why would you trust me? Then?
Good question.
Great question.
All right. Other questions? Please. Hold on. Pass it over.
Thank you very much for the meeting. I'm Santiago. I'm an industrial engineer. So this the topic was really interesting because it was supply chain mixed with AI. My question, and I would like to work here. Like, I really like the call of the company.
Talk to Cesar.
Yeah. And I think, like, now I'm doing a specialization in data science, so I have like the two backgrounds now. But my question is, you only talk about planning, demand planning. Do you also have a product or like transportation, like like that type of logistic that is really hard, like to make models or projects with that?
So that's actually another great question. And Yash and I just had this conversation pretty recently. So we don't currently have like a route optimization problem. Is that what you're thinking? Like that's what Uber does, right? Like how do you direct cars to different places? Or a logistics optimization problem. When we build our products, we don't just sit down and say, you know, okay, what do I feel like building today? A lot of the time we have customers with whom we have long-standing relationships, and they come to us and they say, hey, I have this problem, can you help? This is actually what happened with demand forecasting. I think, Yash, you were there for it. This was a little bit before my time on demand forecasting. So if we had a customer who comes to us and says, hey, like, this is what we'd like to solve, and I think that's very likely it will happen in the next year or two, we will build an application. So yes, I think it's a very interesting problem to solve. I think Yash probably has a lot of opinions on how solvable it is and some data science approaches, but it's certainly something I'd love to work on if we get demand. If we find demand for it, sorry, pun intended. Yeah, do you want to add anything? Okay. Did that answer your question? So yeah, I'd love to do it actually. And we actually really like people who have a lot of experience like industrial engineering or other, because all of our applications are very real world focused. So it's very helpful to have people who are not, you know, just computer scientists. Also, there's nothing wrong with being just a computer scientist or a data scientist. I promise. There are plenty of people just like that too. But it's really nice for us to have people who have a little bit of different perspective as well. Please. Yes, integrate with us.
I have a quick question about it works on a standalone tool, or how do you the integration between like a huge system like SAP? Because you have different feeds from SAP, WMS, EMS, etc. So how is the integration? It works like a standalone application, or it's real integrated with other systems?
Yeah, great question. You want to answer that?
I really need this?
Oh no.
Oh.
That was an important piece of information.
That,
Right?
oh, we should have known that. That
So
would've been
this is going to look really bad online when they've asked me a question and then there's nothing. And it's going to make me look really bad.
Sorry. So just hold it.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah. Great question. So any application that's built on top of the C3 platform is deployed standalone, can be deployed in any customers, any cloud that they're using, can even be a hybrid deployment. It can be on-prem, it can be air-gapped, and but it is standalone. But we do build, but we do have connectors that we can build with, any existing enterprise solutions that you may have. So let's just take SAP IBP, for example. So many enterprises have been using IBP for a long time for demand planning, right? IBP gives you forecasts, and you can also do consensus planning on IBP. You could just integrate a C3 AI demand forecasting into IBP, and you could just use C3 AI demand forecasting as your, key AI tool, where you build all of your models, because the model building, management, authoring experience, all of that is fantastic. And so you could build all of your models in C3 AI demand forecasting, and then those predictions could be shipped back to any other enterprise solution you have for consensus planning, if you would want that, right? If you want to take a step-by-step approach, because it is, change management is a big problem in enterprises. And we have out-of-the-box connectors for most standard planning software. So, and even if there isn't, and I know we didn't go into that in detail today. For those of you interested, I can even talk to you guys offline. But like I was saying, that the type system, which is the abstract layer on top of the platform that developers interact with, it's very extendable. So you can think of like object-oriented programming on steroids. That's what I like to call the type system. So you can easy inheritance, inherit classes, implement whatever you want for your custom connector, boom. And all kinds of communication protocols, the standard ones, HTTP, everything supported. Yeah.
Other questions?
Other questions? Yeah. I think you need both of these.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, John. Well, I really love what you're doing here in C3i. Also, it's amazing what you're doing, artificial intelligence, all the stuff that you're building on here. Also, well, I'm right now passionate about this area. I'm studying my last semester in robotics and digital systems, and I really take like a specialization in inference about this. But during my experience, I just have one question. Well, I was wondering sometimes, like for example, that there are a lot of types of artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, KNN, KMIT. My question is, depending on the type of data that you have, how do you know which of these models is the best to get this data?
Yeah, great question. So, like I was answering a previous question, at least within the demand forecasting application, we consider modeling an art. Like I was saying, where you don't want to consider it as it's not a compute problem, but I want to carefully curate my models with the right features to get the best out of to help the business the best way possible. And what we typically do is, let's take the example of the CPG company, where I have like 40,000 different, let's say, products that I need to forecast for. It's not really products, it's at different levels of the hierarchy, but just to simplify, let's just say it's products. I can't sit and build 40,000 models, can I? Like I can't sit and build a model per SKU, right, to generate a demand forecast. It's too much. I also might not want to sit and build one model across all of those SKUs, right? Because I may be learning some specific patterns. So I need to find a sweet spot in the middle. And our experimentation framework offers you the choice to choose that sweet spot. So what we typically do is we try to cluster all of the different demand patterns that we get into different segments or clusters. So I end up typically reducing, so in this case, we reduce the problem from 40,000 to 100. And then we end up building 100 catered models per segment. Some segments, some product segments you'll see are very seasonal. So I don't need to worry too much about, heavy feature engineering. I don't need to sit and bang my head against the wall and figure out what I need to do here, right? I can just use a very simple statistical model to predict that seasonality. Done. Boom. Move it aside. Some segments will be crazy. Like, you look here, you'll be like, what is going on? So then I'll take that segment, I'll give the SME a call. I'll go and sit with them. I'll be like, what did you do here? What did you do here? What's going on, guys? Like, why is this the way it is? And then they'd be like, yeah, you know what? At that point in time, we had a promotion. Yeah, you know what? Oh, there was a weather storm in November, in Jan. So, the DCs were shut down. And so, all of our key customers, they just put in bulk orders. Oh, yeah, at this point in time, in general, there was a demand for this product, but we didn't have enough inventory. So that demand just kept piling up till we were able to fulfill it, and then it dropped. So we really need to understand what's going on in some cases. But again, going back to what I was saying, I can't sit and review 40,000 cases with the customer. I need to break that problem down into something more scalable that I can, discuss with them in a pilot and get some insight and make into a model. So again, we cluster products based on their historic demand profiles. And then per profile, we try to build a catered solution. You may still end up using the same kind of model across different, but you may use different kinds of features. Your input data may be different, right? You may end up still using the same input data, but your model could also be different. Right? New products are a nuisance. So, okay, like a customer expects you to generate a demand forecast for a new product. The new product has just launched. There's no history. How can I generate a forecast, right? You'd think, but no, I will solve that for you, right? And how we solve that is, hey, we figure out, okay, this new product, let's look at the metadata. Do we have similar products in the past that are long-standing, that have history? And then let's put this new product in that cluster, right? In that segment. Let's learn how to forecast well for that segment, and then we'll extrapolate to this new product. So these are typical challenges. Another typical issue we run into in demand forecasting is the phenomena of what we call, I was explaining this to some folks in the office today too, is the cannibalization and halo effects. Okay, what that means is, if I have two competing products and there's a promotion on one, let's say, the demand for the other one will go down. So there's a cross dependency between two products, right? If I were to build one separate model for both, I wouldn't have the information from the other product to model the dependent product, right? If it's hot dog season, you're going to buy the hot dog and the bun. That's a halo effect, right? And again, I need to put them together and model them together. So these are some of the artsy things that we need to take into account when we model. And yeah, we're very careful. We have a model zoo. Like we have a zoo of 20, 30 go-to models. We choose from that based on the profile. I hope that answered your question. Any more questions? Please keep it coming. No? Oh, okay. My answers are that bad.
Terrible.
Do you want to close it up?
Yeah. One more question? All right. Okay, so I guess you need both these. Okay.
We know that sometimes the problem is not the model, but we have to start with collecting the data and have a good database. So have you faced with the problem that your customer hasn't built a good database, or their database, maybe it's not standardized? And how do you face that problem? Do you go with your customer and help them building their databases, or how do you face that stage? And second question. Well, we know that for doing predicting or forecasting, we have different stages in the data science. So what, for C3 or in your experience, what is the most challenging stage? Maybe
First of all, I hope no customers listening to this because, yeah. Yes, we typically do in many projects run into, I would say, data modeling challenges around data sources that we want to incorporate into our model that the customer may not care for that much at the point in time we're doing a project with them. So that's typically a pretty challenging problem. Mapping, joining tables, pretty challenging at times, and we end up spending a ton of time with data engineering to figure this out. Like I was saying at the beginning, like you as a data scientist, and I'm sure in other roles, so you get to wear many hats, and I've learned so much about data engineering in data modeling in my time in C3, and that's simply because of these issues. I want to also give a little more technical answer. The type system provides something called a unified federated data model, where you can kind of just like I was saying, have an object-oriented programming-based data model where it's easy to reference tables with one another. And sometimes the customer has a very different data model. Different customers have their own different data models. So we do help them standardize their data models a little bit. Like I also said, they sometimes have other kinds of data sources that they don't really care about too much when it comes to demand planning. And so, those may not be modeled well, but I care about it when it comes to modeling. So I want that data. So when I ingest it, I have to model it well. So at the end of the project, besides getting a good machine learning model, we also give them a nice unified federated view of all of their data that's used for modeling. Do we build databases? Yeah, we do. So we support for time series data Cassandra, and for relational data Postgres, and that's the databases we typically use. We also have a key value store. That's a file system based key value store for other kinds of non-relational, non-time series data that we need to store for different steps of our modeling pipeline. When it comes to feature store, that we use a key value store. I won't get into too many details regarding that. To your second question, the biggest challenge for me is data cleansing. So once I get the raw data, before I can put it into a model, understanding it, cleansing it, you'll see a lot of outliers, maybe because of data entry issues, or maybe just because of just some random event that was just random, should not be modeled. So data cleansing is critical, and preparing my data for machine learning is critical. So I would say the data cleansing and preparation step at the beginning is probably the most critical. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Okay, I'm getting aggressive hand waves, so I think we're done. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. It's been really fun for us to visit this office, and I'm also really excited to see all the cool things that are happening in Guadalajara and in Mexico in general from a tech standpoint. I think it's always really exciting to see another hub of technology opening up and developing. So we're certainly looking forward to coming back. Maybe some of you will be there then. Like I said, we're definitely very excited to talk to all of you. Talk to us now if you'd like, if you have sort of more specific questions. Cesar is here, so he's our engineering manager. As you might have said that. So yeah, he's the big boss here. So he would be the person who's sort of talking about hiring and all of that. But yeah, thank you so much for having us. Thank you for coming. I know it's pretty late. So thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll see some of you guys later. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, but didn't realize it's from you.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, very a good talk. Who of these people are software engineers? Raise your hand. How many of you work with data? I like to see that. Okay, well, we here in Datalab don't just evangelize the data science, but we also help you to transition in your career into data. So Ruben is working as an expert data science, data scientist at BBVA, and I'm working as a staff data engineer. So if you have some questions on how to get the next level of your career in the data world, you are welcome to ask those questions. We are very, very glad to help you, and we are gonna be here just talking with you, echando chisme, and we can talk a lot more. You can ask so many questions to Anna and just drinking probably a beer or whatever you want. So thank you so much for having this conversation with us. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Cesar. Thank you, Javi, for helping me to organize this event. And don't miss the next events of Datalab. Don't miss our podcast. As I mentioned before, this is the only podcast in Spanish that you can find online. We are called Datacast. We are on Spotify. We are on YouTube. We are on Apple Podcasts. And yeah, please go and subscribe there. Thank you so much.